Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the I-5 Corridors Traffic Report. Tyson Alger here, joined as always by Justin Myers. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be here. Happy to do what clearly no one, Tyson in media, is doing, which is I feel like we need to discuss the selection committee and their process, and nobody else is talking about it. I feel like we, as podcast hosts, as people who love college football, I feel like it's our duty to talk about ad nauseum who the number 10 team in the country is.
I'm glad you brought that up because we are a once-a-week podcast, and as we mentioned last week, we have day jobs, and sometimes we have to schedule a little bit around that. So I understand the feeling of the millions around the country who've just been waiting just for two dudes to give their perspective on the college football playoff. The important stuff up top that you already know: Oregon is the number 5 seed. Mm-hmm. They will be playing James Madison at Autzen Stadium on December 20th at 4:30 p.m.
Yes.
It's not quite Alabama. It's not quite Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't even make the tournament, so that's a whole different story. It's not Miami, but from Oregon's perspective, it's a nice gradual step into the pool, but unlike last year's belly flop straight into the deep end by jumping in right with Ohio State. So from a football perspective, this is great, right?
It is. From a football perspective, from an Oregon Duck football perspective, of all scenarios and situations, I don't know if there's a better possible outcome. You are a 3-touchdown favorite at home. You didn't have to play in the conference championship game. Then you will play, if you win, as a 3-touchdown favorite, you will play the number 4 seed, so that is the best draw. You get Texas Tech, and you would get Texas Tech in Miami. You don't have to play Texas Tech in Dallas.
Correct.
So if you look at last year, right? Last year, Oregon wins the regular season. Their gift was having to go to Indianapolis to play a really good Penn State team to solidify a conference champion, then play Ohio State, who would go on to win the national championship. As opposed to this year, when they were not as accomplished, their gift is to play James Madison and then potentially Texas Tech. Make it make sense, Tyson. Make college football make sense to me. How Oregon last year, their gift as the number 1 team in the country was Penn State at a neutral site, and then Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, versus this year, from the end of the regular season, James Madison at home, and then Texas Tech at a neutral site. Make it make sense.
It doesn't, but I will say, are we already disrespecting Indiana? Because the look at this draw, it's like this is a great route for the Ducks to the title game. You won't have to face Ohio State until the second trip to Miami. Indiana beat Oregon at Oregon. Indiana beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. Are we still just kind of thinking that Ohio State's doing that rope-a-dope they did last year where they can lose the game, but once everything kind of means it, something like they're the big bad wolf in this? Or are we getting a little lackadaisical when it comes to like remembering what Indiana has done this entire season?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I figure once you get to the Final Four, the easy path, right?
It's gone.
Oregon's path. No, you get to the Final Four. It's not about path anymore. There's no accidents.
It is pretty ridiculous when you think about the fact that okay, the benefit last year was you do get the bye, so you are technically into the second round. And that second round game was against that Ohio State team. Yeah. And so it's like this year's Oregon team was worse than last year's. Maybe if they play, maybe this year's team gets them, but they had a worse season than they did. They were perfect last year. 12-0, Big Ten champions. I think I'd rather play Texas Tech in the second round than last year's Ohio State team.
100%. Yeah. I'd rather play Texas Tech in the second round. And again, I also would rather play James Madison at home as opposed to playing in the Big Ten title game. Right. This is the problem that exists. One of the multiple problems that I think you and I should attempt to solve in the next 15 minutes. But one of them is Oregon was better off finishing third.
Yeah.
That as a football fan, I hate that. As an Oregon fan, I'm not going to be mad about it. But as a football fan, I hate the fact that Oregon is better third than they were last year when they were first. It drives me bananas.
I couldn't tell if it was trolling or not, but I did see some Ohio State fans like posting basically the schedule, and it's like, wait, what do you mean there's 3 weeks until the first round playoff game? Like, we have a month layover until like we play. It's like, that's how it works. Yeah.
So, all right, what do we want to dive into?
Okay, so
first.
So first of all, I do want to give a teaser. We are going to kind of go over the current events right now, but then the second half of this episode, we are doing a replayables episode, looking back at the 2007 Sun Bowl win over South Florida. It's kind of fun looking back at some of those old bowl games in retrospect, especially now as apparently nobody wants to play them games.
And I feel like when we get into our replayables coming up, it's a really good connection to kind of what is going on, because it is something I've talked about for a long time, and I've had former players that I've shared this idea, this theory with, and they did not like it, Tyson. But I will stand by this theory that while Notre Dame is clearly pouting, also, what Notre Dame is doing is exposing what we have all known for a long, long time, but never wanted to admit, that unless you were in the Rose Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, or the national title for the hundreds or so years, it did not matter. It did not matter one way or the other, unless you were in one of those big, massive, program-changing bowls. These other games do not matter. Those have now been changed to where the playoff is now all that matters. The playoff is the new BCS, and all Notre Dame is doing, in my opinion, is exposing what we have all known but don't want to admit, that going to the Gator Bowl makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any football sense. It doesn't make any financial sense. I'm sure Notre Dame cares about the financials, but it doesn't help you prepare for next season. And for Notre Dame and everybody else that is not in the playoff, guess what? That's all that matters, is next season, because this season is over. It's done. So while...
You ever play video games, Justin?
A smidge back in the day.
I've been playing a fair amount of FIFA lately.
Gotcha.
I'm a soccer guy now, worldly. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I like to play online, but I'm not good at it. I'd rather get smoked by some 12-year-old in France than lose to the computer. But I do lose, and I concede a lot of goals early. Like, I'll be down 3-4, 5-0 in the first 40 minutes. I finished the game. I finished the game out of respect for my opponent, and I finished the game out of respect for the fact that someday, 10, 15, 30 years from now, when I'm good enough to beat the new generation of 12-year-olds, I want them to be able to sit through while I'm scoring 8 and 9, 10 goals on them. I think college football teams need to be contractually obligated to eat it when you're not good. Notre Dame's, Alabama's, all these teams have been beaten up on everybody else for their entire careers. They get to play in the big bowl games. They get to be on ESPN. Go play a Redbox Bowl. Go eat it. It's just I understand the whole competitive. I mean, all that matters is next year, and the bowl games are about money, and they always really have been. That's why they're named the Outback Steakhouse Bowl or the Pop-Tarts Bowl or this or that. But for the fourth week in a row and a whole different reason, I'm just going to ask again, what are we doing? It's football. It's a sport. Essentially, you're taking away every little bit and piece of a sport because you're not happy with a certain outcome. Well, guess what? Every other year, 130 teams hate the outcome too, but they take it. And I know they take it because they have to in some regards, because they're not as financially viable as a Notre Dame and control their own destiny and all these sorts of things. But Notre Dame's whole claim to fame is they're one of the best programs at college football, and they love the prestige of being the best of college football. While right now they're just cutting away at the base of everything that college football's become. I don't think it's very smart, Justin.
I don't know if it's very stupid either, though. I don't think in the end, sadly, much like you always want that rich frat kid to get his comeuppance, but unfortunately he just won't because his dad's a lawyer, and they're not going to lose the house. Nothing bad's going to happen to Notre Dame. They just get to do whatever they want to do, and we will call them names. But in the end,
I just love all the graphics they've been putting out. Like strongest two lost team.
Okay, so let's
2 lost team.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
Two. They didn't lose just once, Justin. They lost twice.
It is the fatal flaw. Is the fatal flaw of this playoff expansion, and it's college football's, in my opinion, biggest fool's errand. No other sport, Tyson, do we try to figure out who the best team is. We don't. We don't try to figure out who the best team is. We try to figure out who the champion is, which is not always the same thing. The best team and the champion are not always the same. There are plenty of wild card football teams that have won the Super Bowl, right? There are number 4 seeds that have won March Madness. We do not try to find the best teams. We just try to find a champion. And in college football, along the way, we just decided, let's try to find the best team. Yeah. How are we going to do that? I don't know. Argue about their losses.
What do you
that
mean?
Seems pretty silly.
What
How about
do you mean
argue about their wins?
We have 136 teams across different leagues with different rules, with different numbers of games played, and different.
I know. But yeah, it's just that's why this whole thing is foolish, right? Mm-hmm. The idea that, and of course, if it was any other team other than Notre Dame. I shouldn't say that, but it's the fact that it is Notre Dame and they have a very big mouthpiece to scream from. But yeah, you have no business being in the playoff. To be quite honest, Alabama and Miami have no business being in the playoff either if we are trying to find the best team. You might even say Oregon has no business being in the playoff because they had their chance against Indiana, and the old school way would have taken care of all of this. But we had to expand. We had to change the conferences. We had to screw around with a system that wasn't perfect, but it worked, and inevitably you have made it worse. And the idea that whether it's people like us who are on microphones or people who are on TV shows or people who are on the internet who do not have the self-awareness to understand that you do not know what team is better than the other. You do not know. Everybody going into the Big Ten championship knew that Ohio State was better than Indiana. Oops. Because that's why we play sports. And so this idea that, I know that this team should be in because they're better. Like, we're sitting there just saying that, and I'm screaming from the cheap seats like, this is all really dumb, right? This is why other leagues create champions and playoffs and formats, and you guys sit around and let 14 old dudes pick the teams with also some weird parameters thrown in there. It's like, well, we got to have some rules. Okay, how about all conference champions get in? No. Just 5. If we got a lot of conferences, yeah. Just 5. The power ones? No. The highest ranked ones. That'll work. We'll never have a problem with Duke winning the ACC and stealing a bid from Notre Dame and costing us a gigantic payday, right? That's never going to happen.
No.
My
favorite thing about this is we go through this exact same discussion every year, and it begins with anger, and then it begins with like people kind of come around to the rationalization of kind of what you just said. There's 130x teams. It's imperfect rules. It's an impossible job. But then we get right back to just like yelling at each other. And my favorite thing about it is just because we have like the built-in reality show of the week-to-week rankings coming out. It's very easy to just about go through the Twitter or whatever of any national writer who tweets a lot about this and tweets a lot about rankings. And I don't think there's more than one or two of them who have come out like clean in the, well, you said this before, and that, I mean, essentially, like anybody who's like tried to rationalize what the committee's done for like the last 6 or 7 weeks, going by what the committee said the last 6 or 7 weeks, is going to come out looking like an idiot because like it doesn't end up ever making sense, and they back themselves into certain things because they want to have the weekly pomp and circumstance around the rankings. At the end of the day, like I don't really have any qualms with this final 12-team bracket. Like,
no.
Where they end up screwing up is trying to explain it. It was like me in math tests. Like I would get the right answer. Mm-hmm. You didn't want me to show the work. Like it wasn't a clean process in getting there. But
yeah, because they, for some odd reason, all season long, well, not all season long, but for a good chunk of time, just decided that Notre Dame was better than Miami, even though Miami had beaten them on the field. And then, without either team playing a game, bloop, just flipped. Okay, we're not going to get to the things that I'm frustrated with yet, but little teaser, it may have to do with the Baseball Hall of Fame.
I'm sorry about that, man.
But it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this guy doesn't get in first ballot. This guy doesn't get it. Well, he hasn't played an inning of baseball, but 3 ballots later, now he's a Hall of Famer. It's like Miami and Notre Dame did not play a second of football between the penultimate rankings and then the final rankings, and then you flip them? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Can we blame... I think there's 2 things to blame here, other than ineptitude of big money college football. Can we blame the TV shows Survivor and American Idol for this?
I'm intrigued. Go on.
There was something about Survivor and American Idol, which I believe kind of premiered same-ish time.
Yeah, early 2000s, like that, along with like Amazing Race, kind of.
Where Survivor, every week, we got to vote. Mm-hmm. And somebody was getting bounced. So every show, like, there's plenty of shows where you're like, nothing happened this week. On Survivor, you knew something was going to happen. Somebody was going home. Somebody was leaving the island. Then...
Who's not going to get their rose this week on The Bachelor?
Or The Bachelor, or American Idol. But that's what they turned college football into. There is no need for the Tuesday show. There's no need for it. It's a committee. You can't truly put a ranking together until the final games are played, just like they do in basketball, just like they do in baseball. But you created The Bachelor for college football, and you created American Idol, where, much like American Idol, boy, they really kept us waiting. It's like Seacrest, just
after the break.
Here we go. So they created this made-for-TV thing. The only problem is, Tyson, these people aren't made for TV.
How do they not have Jesse Palmer hosting?
It's a miss. Like, it's a bad miss.
Yeah.
But, like, there's no need for other than to create content. Now, maybe we're all the big suckers in all of this because here we are yapping about it, but...
I think you cracked the code.
Yeah, but in the end, it's silliness. Like, pure, unadulterated silliness, and we're all bought in. But and then one last thing on this, I say one last thing, which is clearly a lie. It's not the sexiest matchup with Oregon and James Madison, or the fact that also Tulane got in, but like, are we just ready to write off every other team that isn't in the SEC or the Big Ten and maybe some of the Big 12? Are we ready for that yet? Because it sure seems
they don't matter, Justin.
Clearly not, because like, well, Notre Dame's not in. Well, Tulane and James, they shouldn't be in there. It's like one of the greatest moments in college football history was when Boise State beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. One of these days, it's going to happen.
Why don't people get pissed about this in basketball? Because everybody loves the Loyola Marymount that makes it to the Elite Eight or Sweet 16 in college basketball. Nobody's going like, "What's wrong with or this?" Is it just because everybody gets in and then everybody gets a chance?
Yeah, because the difference is the bubble teams in basketball are nowhere near the 2-loss teams in college football. So to have a with maybe Oregon this year, but to have some 14-loss Big Ten team not make it in because the Patriot League had a bid stealer, right? That's smaller potatoes than the Notre Dame Fighting Irish not making the college football playoff. It's kind of like when you get to like the last few rounds of your fantasy draft and you're just like, I gotta get it. But you hit it on the head minutes ago. Notre Dame, Alabama, and Miami, none of them should be in. Like, none of them should be in the conversation. You all should be lucky that we let you come to the party. Like, we had a dropout last minute. Alabama, what do you say? You should just be happy that we put you on the phone call, because every one of them has a fatal flaw. Like every one of them has just a bad loss on their resume compared to everyone else in the field. So
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Oregon fan Justin.
Boom.
Impartial person Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about, like, today is December 9th. The Ducks still have 2 weeks and change until they play. Last year was like a 3-week run up. How are you feeling today on this day compared to where you were a year ago when it was you had the bye, you had the number 1 seed, you had all those expectations? Does this feel like are expectations building for you now, especially since you do have the run up of James Madison in the first game? Like, are you confident? Is this a gravy season for you? Like at this point that they've made the playoff and there can't really be like Oregon disappointed this year?
Yeah.
Like because like the very base level of this Oregon team was you have a bunch of new guys. You're coming back from graduating 10 guys to the NFL. You made it back to the playoff. I think they've met expectation, but now comes the point whether you can surpass that. Have you raised your level?
I a year ago felt absolutely positive that Oregon could win the national title.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm there with this team yet. I may come back to this podcast in a month or two and really have my foot in my mouth. But a year ago, you knew the Rose Bowl against Ohio State was going to be a pain in the ass. But there was not a team in the country where you were like, Oregon plays their best game, they can't win. We saw what happened when Indiana played maybe their best game, maybe second best game, because the game they played on Saturday against Ohio State was pretty doggone good. But they went into Autzen and not just beat Oregon, but Oregon had no chance in that game. Like, they put it on them. I don't know if Oregon beats Indiana a second time if they face in the Final Four. I don't know if Oregon beats Ohio State or Georgia if they match up, which would be in the national title game, which is kind of crazy.
There's storylines everywhere. Maybe even throw Miami in that.
Maybe even throw Miami in that. You never know.
Could you imagine?
As we sit right now, I think getting a playoff game at home, even though it's not the cool matchup, like getting a win in the college football playoff that you haven't done since 2014, 15, the New Year's Day of 2014. Like, that's 11 years to go without a playoff win. That's still pretty cool. But I don't know if I'm right there to where Oregon plays Indiana, Ohio State, or Georgia at their best that they could win the national title. But as we talked about, their path to the Final Four is a whole lot better than it was a year ago.
It's funny because I'm actually...
And maybe Texas Tech has got something for everybody coming up on New Year's Day.
My thing is, I don't actually think that there's one dominant team in college football this year. I think we've seen Ohio State's obviously beatable. I'm not going to take anything away from Indiana. They've been phenomenal this year, but they've also lost a game. Like, they're beatable. Wait, no. Did Indiana lose a game?
They did not lose a game. No.
I'm mumbling here. Indiana did not lose a game, but I don't think they're like a 2022 Georgia type of national title.
I mean, they snatched victory out of the jaws of defeat against Penn State, and maybe one of the best catches we've seen.
Correct.
But like, Penn State had them beat. Yeah.
I don't think Oregon played close to its best game that game at Autzen against Indiana. So like, I think everybody's within reach at the very least. Like, I think on a good day, Oregon could beat anybody in the field. My thing is just, I don't know if this Oregon team can do that 4 times in a row. I mean, maybe take this James Madison game out of the picture just because it's such a mismatch in terms of talent and it's a home game. But that's going to be 3 really good games that they're going to have to play in a row against really good teams. And Oregon hasn't been consistently great 3 games in a row. And for much of the schedule this year, it hasn't mattered because, you can look at the schedule. But I mean, like, I'm very intrigued at how this could go. I wouldn't make any predictions either way, just because it feels like it's one of those years.
As imperfect as it is in terms of how we get here, there is a beauty to that imperfection, to where, like, could Oregon benefit from what? Watch, Oregon ends up in an absolute nail biter with James Madison. Mm-hmm. But Could Oregon benefit from what likely would be a September paycheck game, right? James Madison at Autzen, those are games, those are get-right games, right? Yeah. So then they go into what would be the Orange Bowl against Texas Tech, and now you got rest versus rust, and what like Texas Tech has just been sitting there. Did they get the benefit? And I think that's what's awesome about sports. Some teams need rest. Some teams just they're a little banged up. Maybe Oregon's one of those teams. Some teams need to be playing. Some teams need to keep the momentum going, and you can never tell one way or the other. So I do think there's going to be some entertainment over the next couple of weeks. It's just going to be interesting to see which teams handle whatever situation they're given.
So speaking of banged up, let's rewind about 18, 19 years from now and start looking at that 2007 Sun Bowl.
God, it was that long ago.
Yeah,
I did not want to do the math.
We've talked a little bit about kind of this era of this team. I believe on one of our replayables we did the Jonathan Stewart, Adrian Peterson Oklahoma game.
Yes,
but we wanted to do a little bowl game throwback, and there were a couple suggestions thrown out there. But I think this one is a really interesting one to look back on because it's really one of the last kind of bowl games the Ducks played in that had maybe any like luster to it before it became BCS Bowl or bust for the program, because it was Chip Kelly's first bowl game as a coordinator. It was kind of during the swan song of Mike Belotti's career. It was the year where the Ducks were ranked number 2 before Dennis Dixon's injury late in the season. Why this game, Justin?
A couple of reasons. All those things that you said. 2007 college football, like the fact, and I was so lucky to be on the radio in Eugene, covering Oregon, doing pre and post game, and like I was in it, and like that season was the craziest thing I've ever been a part of. Now, you were lucky enough, you got to cover Oregon on a day-to-day basis in 2014. Little bit better outcome because I actually got to go to the national title game. But by the end of Arizona State 2007, Oregon had College Game Day come to campus not once but twice. They were by far the best team in the country, and after a hiccup against Cal, had an unstoppable offense. Dennis Dixon could not be stopped for the Heisman Trophy. Like if you look at the engraving of the Heisman Trophy, there is a D in there somewhere because they already started engraving Dennis in there. Yes. Dennis, there was no, like, it wasn't like, okay, when Bo Nix was having his really good senior season, there were some Oregons going, could he win the Heisman? And I think even there was some parts with Mariota heading into like, is it gonna? It was no doubt. So Tim Tebow would ultimately end up winning the Heisman that year. They had 2 losses. They weren't in the national title picture. LSU with 2 losses would end up winning the national title. Both Oregon and South Florida, who are playing in this Sun Bowl, at one point were ranked number 2 in the country. Cal was ranked number 2 in the country. I believe Louisville was ranked number 2 in the country. Rutgers was in the mix. Kansas and Missouri was in the mix. It came all the way down to the last weekend, which is interesting where we are now. West Virginia, as a 4-touchdown favorite at home, all they had to do was beat Pitt in the backyard brawl, and they would be playing in the national title game. Pat McAfee would miss a handful of kicks in that game. They would lose. LSU would get in, which would also alter the college football landscape for the next 5 to 7 years, because instead of Les Miles going to Michigan, which was what was going to happen after Michigan fired Lloyd Carr, LSU all of a sudden is in the national title game. Whereas Rich Rodriguez looked like he was on his way to the title game with West Virginia. He would ultimately take the Michigan job. It would not work out, and a whole lot of things would be disrupted, which is funny to talk about now, Tyson, that someone who had a chance to win the national title would not take a better job or a different job That's it.
I mean,
Inexplicable, right?
Yeah, it would be inexplicable, egregious, incredibly selfish, and I just can't see that ever becoming the norm in college football.
But what's interesting here is we talked about Notre Dame shutting down their season after they didn't make the playoff. If there was ever a season for Oregon football to shut it down and not go to a bowl game, it would have been this.
Yeah.
So Oregon, for those that don't remember, or for those like me who
have
maybe
compartmentalized
maybe
it
tried to
walked
choose
away the
not
key.
to remember.
Correct.
Dennis Dixon injures his knee against Arizona State. Or he goes jogging off. Everybody's like, whew, that looked like it might have been bad, but turns out he's okay. More on that later. After the game, Bellotti, who's at that point in time, and this is what's kind of inexplicable, Tyson, you weren't around. Mike Bellotti told everybody every injury without hesitation. Hey, what happened to so-and-so? Pulled his hamstring. He's going to be out 3 weeks. Like, he would tell everybody every injury. There was never any secrets.
I didn't even know that was possible. I just assumed that this information wasn't available to anybody. HIPAA.
It was, yeah.
HIPAA.
So after the game, both Bellotti and Chip Kelly, the first-year offensive coordinator, were like, nah, Dennis is fine.
Yeah.
A little sprain. It's a sprain, but no big deal.
Rub some dirt on it.
And Sarah's like, whew, okay. Go down to Arizona. I believe this was a Thursday night game at Arizona. Oregon marches down the field. It is boom, 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 boom. Touchdown. We're cruising. They got Arizona on the road. UCLA was terrible at the time. And then you got the Beavs in Civil War. Those are the 3 games you got to win to get Dennis a Heisman and to be on your way to, I believe it was New Orleans. Actually, I know it was New Orleans because I may have had travel plans.
Rest in peace.
Going to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl for the national title game. Dennis Dixon would run left. He would plant, and his knee would not hold. He would tear his ACL. Now, the mystery is, did he tear his ACL against Arizona State? It was interesting because rewatching this game, because it got to be so lopsided in the second half, like they had the Dennis Dixon.
They had time to cut away. And
they did the interview, and he was like, well, it was a partial tear, and then tried to go on the partial tear, and it was a full tear. Regardless, he was playing against Arizona on torn ACL. That would landslide into an injury list like I've never seen. Because not only would Dennis Dixon be injured, Jeremiah Johnson, who was the backup running back, Jonathan Stewart at the time, I believe it also torn an ACL. Cameron Colvin had broken his leg. Brady Leaf, who was the backup quarterback, would break his foot. Nate Costa was a name most people remember. He had already blown out his knee in spring football, so they're down to Cody Kemp and Justin Roper at quarterbacks, 2 guys that were fighting over scout team reps. So they would go, and then, and Jonathan Stewart, who you probably could have got a win at the Rose Bowl against UCLA, then he got a massive turf toe injury, and he couldn't play. So the season went from national title, okay, maybe you can hold on, you beat UCLA, still go to the Rose Bowl, that's still good. A horrific game, overtime loss against the Beavs at home.
That's 3 in a row.
3 in a row, and just insult upon injury upon insult upon injury. And so heading into this game, needless to say, Tyson, vibes were down.
So
vibes were down.
Let's just do a quick footnote. If this game were to be played 18 years later in today, the land of 2025, you're probably not seeing Jonathan Stewart play in that game.
No, not a chance.
That was a process that really kind of started in 2016-17 when Royce Freeman held himself out of the Las Vegas Bowl. He was one of the first premier players to be like, you know what? I'm not going to go get hurt in this meaningless game. You also had Max Unger on that team, who was also bound for the NFL. You had Jeff Schwartz, I believe, who was also bound. Like, there are a lot of guys that probably wouldn't normally, in today's era, play in a Vegas Bowl type of game.
Yes.
Or Sun Bowl. Sorry, Sun Bowl type of game.
Yeah, that was the part that you kind of look back and go like, boy, It was so much fun to watch Jonathan Stewart rip off like 257 rushing yards and completely decimate South Florida. But yeah, you do wonder, like, he was also injured with a massive NFL future. Like, what is he doing playing in this game? But it was a different time.
Well, I was going to say, like, that just shows you how much like exposure has changed in like 20 some odd years too. Because obviously Jonathan Stewart being the number one running back for a Pac-12 team, or Pac-10 team at the time, there is a certain level of notoriety that comes with that. But it's also, back in the 2000s, it still wasn't easy to get every game on TV. Like, it wasn't, if you lived on the East Coast or somewhere else, you probably weren't getting every Oregon Ducks game, or you weren't seeing Jonathan Stewart in your living rooms on primetime or whatever, like every day of the week. And so, these were still kind of a little bit of the bullshit of allure of bowl games, was like, you finally get a day where everyone in the country is going to watch it. And so, I think there was probably a little bit of that going for Stewart in terms of like a running back trying to like push his way into the NFL draft.
And
push his way into the NFL draft, but furnishes his stock in the NFL draft.
And rewatching this game, and I think we kind of even said the same thing last time we did the 06 game, where it's like, man, Jonathan Stewart was on a different level.
Yeah, he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad.
And, there are some things like some injuries here and there and what could have beens that maybe keep him out of the conversation of greatest Oregon running back of all time, but when healthy, if you were drafting,
I was going to say picking
Oregon
teams in the
running
backyard,
backs at their best, at their peak, it'd be very hard to not take Jonathan Stewart number one overall.
It's almost like the similar feeling I have to if you were to get everybody at their absolute best. Like, I might ride with Vernon Adams, honestly, for like how good he was at some of those games. But obviously, you wouldn't take his career over any of the other guys. 2007, this was in El Paso. I love the visuals of this game. You just have this little stadium tucked away and kind of the mountainside there. A whole lot of kind of newness of Oregon to the national broadcast, because they're having to tell everybody who first year offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is. They make a big stink about the uniforms and the combinations. This year, Oregon's wore a different combination every game. I actually really did like the uniforms in this game. I didn't care for that era that much of like kind of the plated stuff, but this was kind of like the original era take on what Oregon wore in the Justin Herbert Rose Bowl, like that kind of dark, slimy green, whatever. The biggest allure for me, because like I was in college in 2007 when this game was played. I wasn't like the hugest college football fan yet. This was right around the time that I started to become aware of Oregon and the Ducks. But for me, like, the Sun Bowl has always been the Justin Roper game, because I went to Montana, and after this game, after the 2008 year, Justin Roper ended up transferring to Montana, where at the time, because we were an FCS school, you're getting a Pac-10 step down, who threw 4 touchdowns against no interceptions in the Sun Bowl win. I'd never actually seen this game before, or actually seen clips of like, and I have some opinions. All
right, let's have the Justin Roper discussion.
Yeah,
kind of the lost quarterback from Joey Harrington, honestly, to where we are now with Dante Moore, right? Every Oregon quarterback from those has had at least a smidge of a moment in the sun, right?
Because basically after Roper, it went Masoli, who was dominant until he ran away with those laptops. Then it went to Darren Thomas. Then it went to Marcus. Then it went to Vernon. Then it went, it's pretty much smooth sailing after there.
There's also that one, like, there's of course a Dakota Prukop in there.
Who?
Which, it's funny because, like, Roper's got a little bit of kind of like, oh yeah, that's right. There was, because it wasn't, the Roper thing was, it wasn't just like, hey, Dixon got hurt. Brady Leaf's hurt. Nate Costa's hurt. You're the only one left. Somebody's got to play in the Sun Bowl. Here you go, kid. And then he would transfer to Montana. There was a whole 2008. So after the UCLA game, which I believe Brady Leaf tried to play on a broken foot in an offense that was heavily influenced by a quarterback run, and it was like, well, he can't go. He can't go. So all of a sudden, Cody Kemp and Justin Roper go in to play Civil War at Autzen, 2007, and by about middle of the second quarter, it's clear Roper is much, much better. And Mike Bellotti, a guy who has never been afraid to play two quarterbacks in a game, it was kind of his thing for a long, long time. Ultimately, by the end of that game, which was marred by a special teams coaching blunder, Oregon couldn't get all they did was spike the ball, Tyson. It was third down. They just had to spike the ball, but instead they decided to run the field goal unit on and try to kick it in the last second. It would miss. They would go to overtime. Jonathan Stewart would be stopped, 4th and goal, and then every Oregon State fan will tell you about James Rogers and the fly sweep that would end up giving them the win. So, but at the end of that game, I remember doing the post game show. I was like, Roper is clearly the guy. He at least should get the start in the Sun Bowl. He goes to the Sun Bowl. If not for Jonathan Stewart having the greatest Sun Bowl of all time, he's maybe the MVP. Looks good, not great, but if you were watching that game not knowing anything about Oregon football, you're like, that was a fine quarterback.
The crazy thing watching that game, so he finishes like 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think it was around like 186 yards passing. He's fun to watch because he's 6'6", but he's also kind of twitchy for being out 6'6". Like, you're running this offense that had been so oriented around the quarterback run for the first 10 games of the season. It was interesting just watching like how athletic he was for that, but also like he had a great game. There was probably like 4 or 5 like wide open touchdown passes or like wide open guys that could have like even made it just like that much more dramatically better. And he just zipped passes like 20 yards over people's heads. And that ended up kind of being his story at Montana too, because he came down to Montana and he had just this rocket arm and he was overthrowing 4-star receivers at Oregon. And now he's throwing to 5'8" receivers from Billings, Montana, who aren't that fast, Justin. And so he kind of got the nickname Overthroper in Montana, and he ended up losing out the starting position to a walk-on kid from Billings, Montana, named Andrew Sell, who took them to the national championship that year as Roper watched on the bench. So it was fascinating just seeing kind of the you could just see the talent of that guy, but I guess I guess that's what makes Justin Herbert so good is he's kind of that size, has that talent, and is able to kind of harness it.
Well, it's also interesting, though, after this game, Oregon would go to spring practice. Nate Costa would blow out his other knee. And Justin Roper, 2008, is your Oregon starting quarterback, right? It's Justin Roper's team. I believe he gets hurt week 2 against Purdue in 2008, and this Masoli kid that looks like a linebacker, completely opposite of Roper, right? Roper is 6'6", skinny, rocket arm. Jeremiah Masoli comes in. He looks like a linebacker, likes to run like a linebacker, and all of a sudden Chip Kelly goes, yeah, I can work with that, and we would not hear from Roper ever again.
So this game was fascinating. Jim Leavitt is USF's head coach. Obviously, he would go on to become Oregon's defensive coordinator. Weird dude, not going to shy away from that. It was actually a somewhat close game in the first half. Like at the end of the first quarter, I believe it was still 8-0 Oregon. At the end of the halftime, Oregon was up to 18-14. Then basically they just had like a quintessential Oregon third quarter where I believe they outscored them like 28-0 to turn a pretty close game into kind of the blowout we remember it by now. That third quarter was fun to watch because it was a mixture of like quick strike Oregon offense, but then also some of that capitalistic Nick Aliotti defense that we really kind of became used to watching in the later parts of that decade.
It's really interesting going back, knowing what we know about the Chip Kelly Oregon years, right? Because you could see the fingerprints there.
That first extra point attempt where they spread it out and the announcers are going like, "Oh, that looks weird." Like, yeah.
They would learn that that's going to stick around for a while. But like Bellotti, I felt like let Chip Kelly get to fourth gear, but never fifth. Like, all right, we can go no huddle and we can speed it up a little bit, but like, we're not going to. We can't take this to fifth gear. Like, we're still playing football.
You have the governor on it. You don't want to
But you could see a little bit of what would become Oregon's calling card. You mentioned that third quarter. Like, that was. Chip Kelly Oregon teams were known for the blur offense, the speed, all of that. I will always remember they were the most devastating third quarter team of all time. They spent the first 2 quarters wearing you out, and then finally, once you gave up, they would pile on an avalanche points. And this was kind of one of the first times we saw. Yeah, they were just throwing body blow after body blow till you literally could watch a team in South Florida just say, okay, I don't want to play anymore. I know there's 7 minutes left in third quarter, but we don't want to play anymore.
Were you guys all in on Chip at this point yet? Like, was he? I wasn't here. Was everyone going like, oh, we got this genius offensive coordinator? He's like, what was first year in Oregon Chip Kelly's reputation like amongst you all? It was
getting there. I think the Washington game in 2007, which is that's the one that. If you were looking back at when, like, most Oregon fans were like, okay, this offense is completely legit. It was that game. It was still a little weird that they were running again, it's funny looking back. No huddle was innovative at the time. Like, but nobody was doing that. But I think by this game, the only thing that was weird was kind of how both him and Bellotti kind of handled the Dennis Dixon part of it. And if there were some criticisms, it was like you built an entire offense around one guy and then one guy goes down and now the offense doesn't work, which we would learn not really the case. But I think most people were still in on Chip Kelly. He was still like he's running Statue of Liberties against Michigan and fake Statue of Liberties. He runs the fun stuff. We hadn't seen the prickly parts of Chip Kelly yet.
It's just fascinating to me because like I feel like ever since Chip, anytime that a new offensive coordinator comes to Oregon, like that's both Oregon's offensive and defensive coordinator positions came open within the last week. But I do feel like nationally people focus more on the offensive side of it with the Ducks because that's kind of been their bread and butter since the Chip Kelly one. And I would love to kind of teleport back to that time and be able to fly on a wall of people's discussions of who's this guy from? Is it New Hampshire that we're bringing in? Like,
yeah, and if you remember right, like 2004 Oregon was bad. Interestingly, that was also the year they lost to Indiana at home. But 2004 Oregon was bad, and credit to Mike Bellotti, he did a complete overhaul of the offense. He brought in a guy named Gary Croton, and they started running this spread. A spread that Urban Meyer was kind of creating at Utah, who put it on Oregon in 2003. I always felt like that kind of stuck in Bellotti's mind for a little bit. And then he'd bring in Gary Croton to run the spread. Gary Croton would get the job at LSU. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, what was kind of... Oregon wasn't the kind of star maker, but it still wasn't a place where you went and got a no-name guy from New Hampshire.
Right.
That part was a little bit weird. But... like I said, it took 2 games. It was that game at Michigan, and it was like, okay,
we can work with this.
We can. Is he going to do that kind of stuff every week?
Sign him up.
Yeah. Also, you got to remember too, heading into this season, after the 2006 season, which was that was the Vegas Bowl disaster, and things were not like vibes were pretty low too at the end of the 2006 season, and Dennis Dixon decided out of nowhere to go play baseball. Like he decided to go play minor league baseball. It's like, is Dennis gonna be at spring practice? He's at spring training for the Braves. This guy's supposed to be the starting quarterback. And when Chip Kelly came in and clearly saw that Dixon was going to be the guy to run this offense, Kelly got the credit for because he went to Florida where I think Dennis Dixon was playing rookie ball, of talking him back or getting him to commit fully to football, which turned out to be a pretty good move. But it was still, heading into this season, it was not locked in. Oh, Dennis Dixon, he's your quarterback. No, he's playing baseball and contemplating his future.
I'm just having a vision of Chip Kelly like sitting in the stands in the Grapefruit League, probably shorts. You think maybe flip up shades?
Either that or maybe those M frames like the slow pitch softball players.
Probably like a Hawaiian shirt on. Just full baseball scout style. It could be kind of like a rom-com. The weekend Chip convinced Dennis to come back.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But going from like Gary Crowton and then into the Chip Kelly era, and then after, like I said, Michigan happened, and then Washington happened, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, like this guy's figured out offense. Like he's hacked the system. So I still think even after the disastrous 3 games, Oregon fans were still massively, massively high, which also is interesting because the next year would be Bellatti's last. And the fact that we're sitting watching Oregon face off in the Sun Bowl, knowing that the next year would be Bellatti's last year, was also kind of interesting. Going back and kind of rewatching it from that angle.
Right. Especially because, I mean, obviously 2008 wasn't like a season that Bellotti probably would have like loved to say like this is like my final stamp on football either. So it's kind of watching the portal window to this and just kind of seeing like Chip's rise, and it's that's probably one of Bellatti's like last like real good moments too. What was did people celebrate Sun Bowl? Like
I think people were, because bowl wins were different back then, right? I mean, it still kind of meant something to Oregon football to go and win the Sun Bowl. Like, it still, from a fan's perspective, still kind of felt good. And I think the biggest thing was it was kind of like, oh, okay. It felt like 2007 felt like somebody died. I mean, as horrible as that is to say about sports, but everybody was riding high, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, everything fell apart. And I think maybe the biggest thing is Oregon fans knowing, like, no, this is still a good football team. It just had some bad luck. But there was a worry of like, nope, everything was riding on Dixon's knee. Once that fell apart, everything's now gone. And I think it was kind of like, no, this is still a good team. This is still a good program. Stuff to look forward to in the next year.
I need to self-correct myself. The Ducks were pretty good in 2008 too. So
yeah, they would win the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah,
But coming off of a year where they were, 2008 was sandwiched between a national title campaign of 2007 and then a conference championship in 2009.
Right.
So that's kind of where it does get sandwiched. Were they 9 wins?
10 after the...
They beat Oklahoma State in the Holiday Bowl. But there's also some weird stuff in 2008 too. There was that Boise game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think for most Oregon fans, it just kind of felt good to like score points again.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal.
So the final score of this one was 56-21. Jonathan Stewart set the record for most rushing yards at the Sun Bowl and all-purpose yards with 282. Justin Roper tied the Sun Bowl record for most touchdown passes thrown. It was also his first career start. Pretty good, solid December 31st for the Oregon Ducks to wrap up the year 2007. Justin, do you have anything to wrap up this portion of our podcast?
So every time I think of either this bowl game, I always think of that season. That season is the greatest what if in Oregon sports history. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But also it's interesting to see kind of where Oregon would ultimately go from there. And the fact that a year later, part of it was Bellotti had, I think he had really bad knees, and he had like double knee replacement surgery, and he wasn't moving around all that well. But another thing was there was worry that you have this Chip Kelly guy in your office and you might lose him because I think Syracuse. I think there was a Syracuse opening, and so Bellotti would then move on to BAD, and Chip Kelly would take over as head coach. And I brought up the injury stuff because after that Arizona State game, and everybody was worried about Dennis Dixon's knee, I will remember it forever. Was Chip Kelly making a joke, going like, "Oh, he's fine. He's doing jumping jacks. He's fine." And then clearly was not fine. And the very first thing that Chip Kelly implemented as a head coach was there will be no injury news. Everyone will be listed as day-to-day, and there will be no injury news. I don't know it for a fact. I just believe it with my entire heart. The entire Dennis Dixon injury situation created the Chip Kelly. We don't even mention injuries, which I mean, really apexed. There was a game when LaMichael James dislocated his elbow. It was gruesome. Mm-hmm. Luckily, it was just an elbow dislocation. I think he missed 2 weeks, but for a moment there, it looked like LaMichael James was gone forever. Like, it looked so bad. And after the game, Chip Kelly was asked, and he was like, "I'm not sure. I haven't seen it. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't been back there yet." And it's like, the entire stadium saw him get carted off.
Just a flesh wound.
But it's funny that I feel like that season, with all the injuries in 2007, I believe planted the seeds of Chip Kelly's.
Chip should have just been a hockey coach, man. You can just designate everything a lower body injury.
Lower body injury, day to day.
His left leg was amputated. But yeah, we'll just call it a lower body injury.
But I mean, it is an interesting kind of look back to where bowl games were, because as we kind of started off by saying, I don't know how many teams play this game. If you are the number with 3 games left in the season, you're the number 2 team in the country. Your quarterback gets injured, loses the Heisman Trophy, you lose the conference, and all of a sudden you go from 2 to 25.
Yeah.
In 3 weeks, you can't score a point. In 2025 into 2026, Tyson, I don't think they play this game. I think they just say it's the time to shut down the season. And
we're going to focus on recruiting. We're going to focus on the coordinator search. Yes. We're going to focus on...
I don't know if they play this game. For certain, Jonathan Stewart doesn't come close to playing this game. And then the other thing I
mean, shoot, we had to give Bo Nix praise for playing in the Fiesta
Bowl, yeah. Against Liberty.
Yeah.
Where they definitely didn't rig the offense so that he would have the all-time completion percentage, where he was throwing chest passes that counted as completions. It definitely didn't jack up the statistics. The one last thing, because I remember this game being a blowout, and I remember Jonathan Stewart dominating. I did not remember the amount of penalties.
Oh my God,
that happened in the first half. I completely forgot that Oregon went full like late 80s Miami in the first quarter, and I think they had 4 personal fouls and going like, this is clearly a very pissed off football team.
I had to put the watch on 2 times speed, even with like the video that I found was cut in between the plays too. But it was just like there was one driver I'm watching Oregon go forward, backward, forward.
Yeah. And then the other thing was it just me, or did it feel like the referees in this game were like the original Sun Bowl referees?
Yes,
like they were very old. Like it was a very elderly officiating
There was a
crew.
lot of Sun Bowl institutional knowledge on those sidelines.
And then the one thing I wrote down that was kind of fun to see, but I miss, because the game was on CBS. David Letterman promo.
Yeah,
that was fun to see.
Yeah,
it's like that feels good.
That feels nice.
Little Letterman vibe. Hey, Dave's back and all new shows in the new year. It's like
top 10.
But yes.
All right, what's got your lips chapped this week?
You know, when I thought Notre Dame at 2 losses, not getting into the playoff was going to be, or the fact that we were arguing about two lost teams that played each other. Tyson, I thought the people arguing for Notre Dame to get in over Miami when they had the same record and lost to them, when I thought that was going to be the most absurd thing we were going to do in sports. And when I watched all of the reaction to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, I thought, surely it cannot get more ridiculous than this.
I think it did.
The Baseball Hall of Fame voting happened over the weekend. And so let me get this straight. Make this make sense. I'm biased 100%. Dale Murphy is a 2-time MVP. Now, years ago, I would have probably been like, great, maybe not a Hall of Famer. Since then, there have been plenty of guys who are nowhere near Dale Murphy's level of excellence that have gotten into Cooperstown. But in just this one, time, Dale Murphy, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens are not in the Hall of Fame, and Jeff Kent is. Like, that happened over the weekend.
Wait, hold on.
Like Jeff Kent.
Hold on. Do that run through again.
2-time MVP, Dale Murphy. All-time home run leader, asterisk, Barry Bonds. Multiple-time MVP. Multiple Cy Young Award winner, Roger Clemens. None in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Kent, who is on Survivor, which we mentioned earlier, who was on a season of Survivor, and I believe once he claimed he injured himself washing his Jeep, but then video surfaced of him riding a motorcycle. That guy. So Jeff Kent's in the Hall of Fame, and Dale Murphy and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds are not.
Well, there's obviously circumstances surrounding two of those guys. Is Jeff Kent a better baseball player than Dale Murphy?
I don't think so in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I don't think there's any possible way.
I could look up the stats in front of me. I know Jeff Kent was a pretty good second baseman. I know he was a pretty big asshole. I know that was hard to get notoriety for because you had an even bigger asshole who was a much better baseball player in your own locker room. Barry Bonds, obviously. So, Dale Murphy, I mean, I ultimately think that this is punishment for him abandoning the Portland Diamond Project in lieu of the Salt Lake.
Clearly, he shows lack of commitment. Yeah. I mean,
At this point in your life, though, do you actually want Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame, or do you like to have like to be like, because sports fans love to be upset about things, right? Like this is one that's very close to you because it's baseball, it's your childhood. If he gets into the Hall of Fame, it's just going to be Dale Murphy, the fifth rung Hall of Famer.
Fair enough.
You know, like now it's. Man, he's been screwed. He's been
interesting. So, like my father-in-law is a diehard Cubs fan. It was almost worse when they won the World Series because there was.
I was just about to say Ryan Sandberg's not a Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah. But it was the Cubs, they never win. Yeah, they're lovable losers. And then they won. And it was like, well, what are we now?
I made the Mariners never making the playoffs a massive part of my personality. Yeah. And I don't know who I am anymore.
And so so now that if Dale Murphy were to get in, which 2031 is what we're looking at now, I think the next time he's eligible.
Is that like how the committee voting or whatever the heck this thing was? I believe
well, Twitter told me that, and they've never lied to me before.
Wrong. Brock.
But no, I want him to get in because, one, a lot of people like me became baseball fans because of the Braves in the 80s. That ushered in.
You had the cable network. We get it. Yeah.
All that stuff. Two, I'm incredibly lucky with the fact that I got to do sports radio and a little TV for 20 years, right? I'm so lucky. And I got to go we've been talking about Oregon football in 07. Like, I got to experience it. I got to be there. I got to interview Dale Murphy 3 times. I got to meet him a couple of times. You were with me once.
I have a photo of me and you with him.
Yeah. And, you know how it's like, don't ever meet your heroes. I got to meet him. it could not have been a nicer human being.
Mm-hmm.
Just an absolute gem of a person. And it's like, that guy deserves to have his speech. That guy deserves to give his Hall of Fame speech.
It kind of seems like he's already a Hall of Fame human, Justin.
Sure.
Yeah.
But he deserves his plaque in his speech.
True.
Is what I would say. And
I mean,
and so we're going to have to sit here and listen to Jeff Kent.
Look, I can appreciate this because
on.
we were very close to having my Dale Murphy in this situation with Edgar Martinez making it in on the very final ballot, and Edgar would have definitely been one of those players where, especially from being in Seattle, where you already feel like you're an overlooked fan base. Here's an overlooked player from that. Like you want him to you want other people to go around. Hey, that guy you guys had was pretty good. Like like that's a nice feeling. I can understand that, but fortunately Edgar was good enough. So I'm really sorry. I like Dale. Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame, but it's funny.
I mean, and it's
he has a song like you wouldn't have a song about Dale Murphy if Dale Murphy was in the Hall of Fame.
I know.
Think about that.
Yeah, I'd still rather have a plaque.
It's a bop
than the song.
Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, you're right. It's a bop, but let's just get him there.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The fact that Jeff Kent's in, and also like,
I mean, our problem is we should have talked about this before to try to give him the corridor bump.
Maybe it's on us.
Sorry, Dale.
Also, like, let's just stop with the whole anti-steroids. Like, you put in like David Ortiz, who was busted for steroids. Like, let's just put steroid guys. Should we just do one, like, let's just do one steroid summer where it's like Bonds, Clemens, McGuire, Sosa.
Big boy summer.
Like they all get in, A-Rod, like they all get in and they all get to give their speeches, but we just know like this is the steroid wing. But like it's ridiculous that you have guys I bring up David Ortiz because we conveniently forget that he got busted. He was on the Mitchell Report. Like he did steroids. He was a Mendoza line hitter in Minnesota, then weird, he just goes to Boston and starts hitting bombs. I don't know how. Weird. But we let him in. We're just gonna forget about everybody else?
Yeah.
No, it's only the guys that are nice that did steroids. They get in. Jeff Bagwell gets in.
I think they should do do you want to be included in our steroid summer? You can volunteer. Only people who are like, I want to be included. So basically, like Barry Bonds has to be like, all right, get me in this window. It's him finally copying to, because Bonds has never really said anything other than the cream and the clear when he was under deposition. So you'll have steroid summer. It'll be a 2-day induction ceremony. You'll have the regular ceremony on Sunday as usual. On Saturday, they'll do the steroid guys. They'll contract out the WWE to do the promotional stuff for it. So
there we go.
Like, they have to have their music as they come out.
It'd just be hilarious.
It's just a nice concession,
Wouldn't it just be funny to just see McGuire and Bonds just sitting there all skinny? Oh, weird. How'd that happen?
Yeah.
Just decide to eat more vegetables? Got it. Good for you. Oh, I just take the stairs instead of the elevator. That's what did it. Still should be in the Hall of Fame.
I'm not here to talk about the past.
Nope.
My focus is on baseball. I still remember like the steroid hearings. I was watching we were on vacation in Hawaii, and I was glued to the TV as like Rafael Palmeiro's wagging his finger at. Yeah,
that was like, boy, we needed, because I don't think Twitter existed back then. I think it was, maybe Facebook, but we still were in very, very early sports internet, and like, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. Like what would actually blow up Twitter if it happened today, and like the OJ Bronco chase. Jordan playing baseball. I mean, but like legitimately, McGuire's "I'm not here to talk about the past" would have been memed to eternity. So you have a panel of baseball players, and like Kurt Schilling is the moral leader.
Yeah.
And then Sammy Sosa completely forgets how to speak English.
Yeah.
Mark McGuire is only here to talk about the past. Yeah. And Rafael Palmeiro gives the finger wag, and a year later.
I'm pretty sure he had a positive test like a year later, and then that was the end of it. So, you got anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good too. So, next week we'll kind of do more of a James Madison playoff preview. It'll be our last episode until Christmas. So, next week that is.
There we go.
And enjoy watching the Sun Bowl, guys. I know we didn't tell you which one to watch beforehand, but there's plenty of feeds of it on YouTube, and that Justin Roper had a hell of an arm.
It just that thin air in Montana kept overshooting guys.
We'll talk to you guys next week. Beauty.